Hello everyone, this is my individual reading part whose topic is about discrete planning algorithm, and the specific topic I have chosen for the homework is path planning for mobile robots using bacterial potential field for avoiding static and dynamic obstacles. And here we go. This is the overall profile of the discrete planning algorithm. Actually, it includes two parts. The first one is the representation, and the second one is the search algorithms. As we all know, as for the representation, it has three kinds of things, which are cell decomposition, a roadmap approach, and artificial potential field, respectively. As for the search algorithms, I have just divided them into the static ones and dynamic ones. The static ones includes BFS, DFS, A star and its variants, Dijkstra, and the dynamic ones includes D star and its variants in the meanwhile. As for the specific topic today, I think it is based on artificial potential field, so I just show you like these. I have just written out as optimization for artificial potential field method, and it actually used the method of BEA, and I will talk about it later. Okay, here we come to the theoretical part. As for the artificial potential field, I may have to first introduce this method as the introduction for the BPF. And in this method, you can see that you have to actually define the potential, which are represented by U total, and it has the attractive and repulsive part, which are expressed as below. And here we have just defined some of the parameters to get the U function and formula in a more specific way. And the Q and QF is recognized as the current and target position. KA are recognized as attractive, repulsive, proportional gains, and rho 0 is the limit distance of the influence of potential field, and the rho is the shortest distance to these obstacles. Actually, after we have defined all these potential representation, we can apply the force to the robot, and the force is defined as the relatives to the U total. And here are some of the pictures that you can take a look for understanding this part. And as for the artificial potential field, the algorithm is expressed as follows. First, we define the distance between the position of the robot, the distance between the position of the robot at the starting point and the design point, and after that we go into a loop to do such kind of things, like we just update all the potential values from time to time, and applying the force once we have refreshed all the values of the potential, and it then goes out like from point to point, like for take this picture as an example. A starting point is here, and then it follows the function and force to go front, like from here until that it can get a range that is reasonable to define that it has reached out their destination. And these are some of the profiles of the artificial potential field. And once it has reached the goal, the function will returns the path it has planned for the whole process. Otherwise, it will return nothing, meaning that there is no valid path for the robot to get to the destination from the starting position. Okay, here comes up the research questions. Actually, we have four together questions as to the APF method. The first is that how could we define the value of the parameters in APF? Traditionally, we can just provide the value by personally trial, but personally the subject's trial and error to get a more exact and accurate value for it. But the bad part is that it's very time consuming and it doesn't ensure a very good effect. The second question is that what if the value that we have found to set the parameters is not appropriate for the whole map? So for one thing, it can cause the no minima situation, which we have learned in the course motion planning, and it is also possible that we cannot find a path to it. As for the second, even if we have find a path, it may not be the optimized one. So that's not that good for us to get things work out. As for the three research questions, is there any limitations for the scenario application? And you can know that once the parameters has been set, we cannot change it during its processing procedure. So we can get the conclusion that it is only applicable to the static environment with parameters set initially, because we cannot change it manually during its working process. And as for the fourth research questions, is there any ways to get them optimized? Of course we have, and they are actually BPF, PBPF, and GPPF. And later I will talk about more details about bacterial potential field, which is also known as BPF. Okay, here comes up the bacterial evolutionary algorithm. Before we introduce the BPF, we have to introduce BA first, because the BPF is based on this algorithm. And this, as we all know it from its name, this method, or we could say this algorithm, is produced or is heuristically like or bacterium gain population way, which means that the process of the whole algorithm is like the increment of the population of our cluster of bacteria. And here are the specific details about this method. As you can see that we have to first set an initial population for the bacteria, and after that we evaluate each bacteria in their population, and here is the picture explaining it. In the picture we can see that after we have gained the first initial population, it then perform the bacterial mutation to the following part, like it could be mutate from this part to the second part. It can also from the first to the third, and so on and so forth. After it has so many bacterial mutations, we can just define a room so that we can evaluate how good the separate bacterial clusters is. For example, we can just define this cluster using our standard or criteria. We can evaluate that the score of this cluster is 0.1, but the score for this part is 0.2. And in this situation, we can actually think that this population is better than this one, and in this way we can find the best clone of the mutation part. After finding it, we can then copy all of the subpopulations as the best ones, like it copied from this to this to this until all the subpopulations has been finished. And this is the whole process for the mutation part and the genetic transferring part. And after that, we continue to do this, so on and so forth, until such a time that we think it is already, or it is good enough for the mutation to stop, and we then return all the values that has been set during the whole process to the main functions. And later on, I will talk about the BPF path planner. As we all know that BEA is an algorithm to apply in the function of the BPF. So, as for the BPF procedure, we first find the evaluation criteria from APF method, which we name it as fit function, and then we set all the initial parameters values and also the fit function to BEA to make it broad, and to make it gain more and more clusters. And this process is called BEA algorithm. And it is certain that this process will take the majority of the time of the whole algorithm. So after it has done, we then select the result according to the goal. If the goal is equals to 1, then it means that the target has been achieved, and then we have passed all the parameters that we have gained to set up the initial parameters, so that it can get a great performance on the algorithm of APF. And if the goal hasn't been found, it means that the target has not achieved. So it is reasonable that such a reachable path does not exist, and it then turns out to the main function. And here are the ultimate form of the mobile robot navigation. This is the whole procedure of navigation, and what we have talked about before is just the theoretical planning procedure of the path, and this part is the execution of all the actions of all the path that we have talked about before. So as you can see that we first use BPF method to find a path, and then if the navigation flag is true, we do perform the verification of the environment and sensing the environment. If the environment has changed, it means that all the parameters will be changed accordingly. So we immediately set the current state as Q0, and then we use BPF method to get a new path for the rest of the path, and then we replicate the same method to make the robot go from the start point to the end point, and this is very helpful when the robot is navigated in a dynamic environment instead of a static ones. Okay, below are the theoretical part, and next I want to talk about experiment part. Actually, in this paper, it has 5 focused problems in terms of the comparison of how much BPF performs well than the other algorithms, and the problems are all about the robot motion planning. The first is a very common problem we can meet in APF situations, which is called the local minima problem, and the second is the trajectory prediction problem, which is also very common if you have choose the wrong parameters for the gains in APF method. And the third is GNRON, which is known as goals not reachable with obstacles nearby problem. This happens especially during the situation that when an obstacle gets very near to the goals, and it's also very common in APF method. And for the fourth problem, it is called working online in unknown environments, and I can say that the fourth and fifth problems are all about the dynamic environment problems, and we can discuss them together later. And the first is the local minima problem. The authors has used the simulations to make the robot from the starting point to try to reach the goal point, and of course it missed the local minima problem when they used the APF method, but they have just came out the conclusion that BPF is the best suitable algorithms for these for solving the local minima problems, as I have listed in their slides. So, as for the second problem, the trajectory prediction problem, this problem means that if we have choose the wrong parameters, the robot may then have got into the wrong path to the goal. And in experiment, the authors said that they cannot find a valid path using APF method. However, it is very helpful that they use other methods like BPF, PBPF, and GPF. And likewise, the BPF always performs the best result. And for the goals not reachable problem, it differs from the second problem in that it happens especially when an obstacle gets very near to a goal. So you can say that there are many repulsive forces near the goal, so the robot cannot easily get to the goal according to the forces applied with the potential field. So um, we so the goal is obviously cannot be reached using the APF method. However, they apply the result that the BPF as well as the PBPF performs very well during the whole experiment. But BPF is better one because it consumes less computational time compared with the PBPF ones. And the fourth and fifth problems are all about dynamic environment problem, which cannot be solved by APF because it is only applicable to the static environment. So when it comes to these situations, we can see that actually this is the offline path planning in this first picture, and the second one is the online path planning. The difference between them is that as you can see, the second pictures there is obstacles set in the middle of the two obstacles. There is a new obstacles. However, before the new obstacles has been put, the robot has already set a series of paths according to the algorithm, and it actually will follows the path to the goal if there is no obstacles here. However, after adding an obstacle, it is obvious that the robot has to make a new choices using their algorithms, and compared with others, the BPF also performs the best result for this kind of task, and you can see that it follows the original path to the goal like this until such a point that there's a new obstacles that has been added in the position, and at this point the robot has sensed the new added obstacles, and suddenly it uses BPF method to quickly compute out a new path according to the surrounding environment. So it then follows this new path to reach the goal like this way, and this helps it successfully avoid the new added obstacles, which cannot be solved using APF method. And the fifth problem is also about dynamic environment, but it differs from the fourth one in that the newly added obstacle in the fourth problem is a static one. However, in the fifth problem, the newly added dynamic obstacle is a dynamic one, and it could therefore goes to interfere the path for path that generates from the goal to the start point of the robot. So in this way, it is obvious that it has more impact on the motion planning of the robot. However, BPF has helped us in this way to gain a very specific path planning, so that the robot could meet the requirement of collision avoidance during the whole process. And that is the whole thing about experiment. As for the paper summary, here are 4 points I want to I want to mention before getting finished. The first is that BPF ensures to find the optimal path in complex real-world scenarios with static and dynamic obstacles, which cannot be accessed by APF method. Second, BPF uses BEA and the latter one is based on the APF to find the shortest path according to the designer criterion. And this mainly talks about the profile of the BPF method. As for the third one, BPF outperforms the GPF and BPF method because it can reduce the computational time to find the optimal path, and this is also the one of the criterions of the BPF method compared to other variants of BPF method. And as for the last one, in this paper, all the robots has been used are based on the mobile robot model, and they have the reality configurations, meaning that it is not a initial one. It is not a point robot, and the authors has considered its physical size, orientation, and something like that. So we can directly apply to this model in the reality industry, like non like autonomous vehicles and something that is very novel to the whole robotics industries. And that is also the advantages of these papers as to the BPF method. And okay, that is the whole thing I want to talk about in this individual reading part. And thanks for your listening, and thanks for your time in the meanwhile.